Hi everyone, Elliot here. So I'm just in iMovie and I'm going to walk through how to set up your master project file so we can start to build your rough assembly, your rough cut and then your final video on there. We want to make sure that the quality is as good as possible, so we want the properties of your master file to match the best quality video that you're creating with your phones. If we think back to the SciFund Week 0 project we made, the video clips that we made for that were actually lower resolution than what you guys will have. If we go over to settings on the Week 0 stuff, you can see it's 720. We imagine that your phones and cameras and things will be creating files at 1080, which is a higher resolution. So we want to make sure that we don't use the Week 0 project for our final videos. So what we're going to do is go to Create New Movie, select No Theme, we're going to call this Master Project, and let's put the topic on there as well. Okay, so now we've got a blank project to start from, and let's bring in some media as well. I've got them hidden away here. Bring those into the media browser. Now, the way that iMovie works is that it will match the project settings to whatever the first clip is that you bring down onto the timeline from the media browser. So we can see our clip's properties by going back to our Finder and then clicking on a video clip and pressing Command I. And then under Dimensions, under More Info, you can see 1920 by 1080. And that's the resolution that we need for our final videos. So we just need to make sure that this clip with those dimensions is the first thing that comes down onto the timeline. If you've got some images from the internet or borrowed material from somebody else, they could be in all different resolutions and file sizes, which is fine, but if you bring those down onto the timeline first, your project will match the settings in those files, which might mess you up later. So you just need to make sure that this first step is followed correctly, and then it should be plain sailing from there. So let's find that clip in the media browser, it was this one, and bring that down onto the timeline. And now if you go to settings, you can see that we've got 1080p, which is what we need. Okay, so let's start bringing in our script, and then we can build our rough assembly. So we've got our script here. Your script might have some video attached if you've recorded yourself talking to camera. Either way, bring that down onto the timeline like so. And now to build our rough assembly, what I'm going to do is just play through the audio and roughly place down the B-roll to match where it's being talked about in that script.
Here's the thing though, the snowy plover is a threatened species.
So where he says the snowy plover is a threatened species, I'm actually going to cut this clip and I'm going to bring down a picture of a snowy plover with the leg bands on. And now I'm going to play through that cut again.
The snowy plover is a threatened species and their number...
And then when he starts to talk about their numbers are declining fast, I'm going to cut that clip there because I want to illustrate their numbers declining with something else. And I don't actually have a video image that illustrates that, so I'm going to have to come up with a creative option to illustrate their declining numbers. So what I'm going to do to remind myself of that is I'm actually going to add some basic text. I'm going to just standard lower thirds or something similar. I'm going to bring that down onto the timeline, and then on here I'm going to put negative trend graph, and maybe I'll remind myself that it needs to be a stop motion. It's just an idea of how I might solve that problem. And now I'm going to play through the cut again and see how long I want that negative trend graph to play.
And their numbers are declining fast. It's getting harder and harder.
So I'm going to cut it somewhere around there. So now when I come to make my stop motion, I know that it's got to be at least 3.5 seconds long in order to fill this gap in the timeline. So I'm going to play through that cut again.
Numbers are declining fast. It's getting harder and harder for them.
So after there, I'm going to cut to the empty beach with the do not enter signs.
harder and harder for them to survive on the beaches. Why? One reason, unleashed.
Okay, so now he mentions unleashed dogs. So I'm going to cut this clip to about there. I'm going to find my unleashed dog shot and bring that down as well. Play through the cut again.
One reason, unleashed dogs on the beach really mess with the birds.
Okay, so he mentions messing with the birds, so I'm going to cut this clip somewhere behind here, and then I can get the different types of disturbances down onto the timeline, like the bird leaving the nest and also the bird taking flight. I'm not going to need all of that, so I'm just going to pick that section there. And now we've got a very rough assembly of our story, and from here I can make finer adjustments to the length, duration and the content of the clip as we head into the rough cut. Now we've got the rough assembly down, now would be a good time to duplicate the project in case we want to try a different version later. We don't have to redo all the work that's involved with making a rough assembly. So if we right click the project, we can duplicate it like that. And now we've got two master projects. One we can leave as the rough assembly, and the other one we can continue on with our rough cut.